Is how often do you come to Europe these days? I mean, you're the leading FAB is the leading bank in the Middle East. It's based in Abu Dhabi, and you can describe on many different measures. Also, FAB's CEO, who was here earlier, Hana Al-Rostani, is the leading women financial leader, female financial leader in the Middle East. Is a great force. But is Europe on your speed dial and on your travel schedule often?
Yes, Justin, very much so. So yes, Europe is very important to us. You know, we have been in Europe for a very long time. So with presence in the UK and then in a post-Brexit environment, we thought what should be the right format, you know, to cover the EU, and we have had a presence in Paris for many years as well, but it was a relatively small local presence, a branch, and we have just made the decision a few months ago to convert this branch into a full EU subsidiary, so able to cover the 27 EU countries from France in a post-Brexit environment. So yes, it is an important geography. This said, you know, are there some geographies which are not important to us? Not really, because Asia is super important to us. The US is very important as well, and Africa more and more as well. So we are not trying to become another global bank, but we want to be very much, you know, the go-to bank for any international institution willing to do business with the Middle East. That's the way we are positioned.
And right at the crossroads of north, south, east, and west, which is increasingly the positioning of the Middle East. Now let's talk a little bit about, I mean, the UAE has obviously been on this remarkable journey towards diversifying away from fossil fuels and the low carbon economy, creating a more low carbon economy. How is FAB working in this area, specifically, you know, with your clients and your client base in the region and around the world?
It has been super important to us, you know, and sometimes it may seem a little bit counterintuitive that a bank, you know, headquartered in Abu Dhabi, which is an important fossil fuel producer, has such a strong focus on ESG and energy transition. But this has been the case, and I can explain a little bit why. It has been a journey. You know, we started almost 10 years ago, a little bit less than that, 8 years ago. We issued our first green bond in 2017. And then, you know, every year we have made a step further. I think a very important one was about 4 years ago now, where we decided to join the UN group of banks, taking a commitment to move to be net zero, scope 1 and 2, your direct emissions by 2030, and scope 3 by 2050. And we have been working relentlessly on that, so now disclosing our own emissions for about 80% of the financed emissions, and also taking a very big commitment to finance renewable energies, primarily in the region, but also outside the region. You know, we committed to $135 billion of green financing, sustainable financing by 2030. We have done that, and we have accelerated that effort. You know, over the last year, you know that COP28 was in Abu Dhabi. It was a very important COP because it was positioned exactly as we thought it was relevant to do it, which is that we are not exiting fossil fuel, but we are facilitating the transition. So we are still involved in both, but doing a lot, you know, in terms of renewable energies. But in the meantime, saying, you know, to move to something new, you have to be able to unplug, and unless you can unplug, you cannot abandon, you know, conventional energy. So that's what we have been trying to do.
Interesting. But what's interesting about the Gulf and obviously UAE and Abu Dhabi is the scale of the capital. And you know, talk a little bit about you know, how you're advising clients or even yourselves working with public sector institutions on scaling these climate investments to a much larger level than have been seen before.
Yes, and sometimes it's not very well known that the Middle East is in fact a leading region, when it comes to renewable energy, and there is a simple reason for that. That the Middle East has had a lot of oil, of course, but it has also a lot of empty space available and a lot of sun. So, which does position the Middle East very, very well, the UAE obviously, but also Saudi Arabia, to be a world leader in terms of solar energy. And we have seen the development, you were talking about scalability, the development of very, very big solar farms, generating, very meaningful amount of electricity now, and which can be then reused for green hydrogen, where the Middle East, has become really one of the global champions. And then you have had a number of initiatives that FAB has been a part of, like the creation of the Global Climate Finance Center, JCFC, headquartered in Abu Dhabi, supported by a number of regional institutions. What we are trying to do as an ecosystem is to support the effort of building some global champions in renewable energies. Masdar, which has been mentioned, is one of them, one of the global leaders now in terms of wind and solar energy production, and there is much more to come. So it's a journey, but moving at a fast pace.
So we started off talking a bit about your activities in Europe. Obviously, given where Abu Dhabi is located and also the sort of between East and West to some extent, and North and South, talk to us a little bit about your Global South strategy, how you're thinking about it, and how across the next 10 years, and what opportunities and risks do you see?
So, if you look at history and without going to the Roman Empire and the role of the Mediterranean Sea, but you see that over the last 50 years, there have been a series of shifts. Trade and investment were immediately after the Second World War, very much between Western Europe and the US, and the Atlantic Ocean was really the center. And then it has shifted to the Pacific Ocean and the US West Coast and China. And I think what we are seeing happening now is a shift to the Indian Ocean. And you have 1.4 billion people living in India. You have 1.4 billion people living in Africa and still growing very strongly in Africa. And just in the middle of that, you have the Middle East and you have Abu Dhabi in particular, and the UAE. So we think that there is a shift in terms of center of gravity for the world economy, and that this big area, between India, Southeast Asia, and Africa, and the Middle East, you will find more than about 50%, maybe slightly more than 50% of the world population. You see very strong GDP growth rate, as we know, in India and in Africa today, even, if in the case of Africa, it's still a relatively small contributor to the world GDP, but growing very, very quickly. So the Middle East and the UAE in particular are ideally positioned, to become a global hub for energy, as we said, a global hub for the financial industry, a global hub for logistics, a global hub for trade, and this is really a golden opportunity, for the region.
Interesting. Last question, we'll go in a totally different direction. Well, first of all, how many here have been to Abu Dhabi before? Okay, so this is the Davos crowd. There's something happening in Abu Dhabi. I just would say, as sort of a student of the planet, the modern business world. Obviously, Dubai, was the sort of the precursor large global city in the UAE. But tell us what it's like to live in Abu Dhabi in 2025. Every time I go there, it seems to have changed so much in the last 10 years, and its ascendancy in many different ways is quite remarkable.
It is fascinating to see the pace of change in Abu Dhabi, and you mentioned Dubai as well. But the amount of energy, vision, the willingness to change things, to develop, the ambition to change the scale of what has been done so far in the region is unprecedented and very, very impressive. So which very much also contributes to see a good number of multinational companies relocating or significant amount of staff in the region, and also financial investors, and that's a change and another shift. The Middle East and Abu Dhabi was an exporter of capital, and it is still an exporter of capital. But we see also more and more capital coming from the West and being deployed in Abu Dhabi and in the region. And Abu Dhabi Global Market, which is the financial center, the offshore financial center of Abu Dhabi, has had a huge success, huge growth over the last couple of years.
And actually, we're going to finish, and Liz Hoffman, our business and finance editor, I think has written about the race to replace Singapore and Hong Kong for the next 50 years, and is it going to be Abu Dhabi? Is it going to be Riyadh? And I think so. If you want to learn more about these sort of questions, sign up for Semafor, because it's one of our obsessions. But listen, thank you very much for your conversation. Please join me in thanking our partner here. Thank you, Martin.